Okay. So should we go back through the introduction since I missed that?
I think we're okay.
All right.
There's no open meeting law requirement to say who you are.
Okay. Okay. So we'll start with the approval of the September 2024 minutes. Do we have a motion for someone to approve the minutes?
So moved.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Seeing and hearing none. All in favor of approving the August minutes, say aye.
Aye.
None opposed. Okay. One moment, since I'm switching back and forth here. Okay. So the bulk of our meeting will be taken up with reviewing the recommendations for the 2024 master plan update. And I've left some time to also discuss how the recommendations and the Conway study will be integrated into the existing, 2014 plan, how we envision that happening. I have a couple of ideas, but they're really rough at this point. But first, Amy's going to share her screen and we're going to go over the short remaining list of implementation actions. Amy, would you be willing to lead us through this?
Sure.
Okay. And I'll just mention, I'll refresh our memories. And for some of us, maybe not everyone was here, there are quite a few sort of cultural resource type recommendations that came up as part of the land use chapter that we reviewed, probably 6 months ago now. So because the Conway School was focused on Main Street as one of their priority areas, quite a few cultural pieces are there. So I'll try to do my best to remember them if anybody says anything like, oh, well, why isn't this on here? So that's just a quick reminder.
I have a
Nancy?
question. I confess I did not read the minutes. I approved them, but I thought we were gonna look at number 6, again, we hadn't quite got to the end of that. I think Jonah, you also had asked that.
Oh, I think just 6.4. Yes, 6.4.
Right.
My
6.4.
apologies. I remember that now.
Well, and there was one other detail that when we were discussing this, I had expressed an interest in having an aspirational goal for the ag section.
Right.
And the question was, to bring back some ideas of how that might be expressed.
Okay.
So I brought some ideas.
Okay. And so that'll be the bigger picture.
Okay, you want to hold that until afterwards? Okay.
All right. So what do people have on 6.4?
The issue for me was that the strategy was separate from the implementation action. Work with neighborhood groups to identify town-owned land that could be used for community food. And then it says support decorative flower boxes. And like that, they just doesn't line up. It just felt like something was a little amiss there.
It does say community food and flower gardens.
But it says to identify town-owned land. So maybe there's just like the strategy seems very more like an action. It seems very specific about identifying land, which neither of these two are identifying land.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking that there was a strategy earlier that maybe the flower box beautification one could go under. But is it okay if I scroll up? Because I'm gonna scroll up. Okay. Maybe.
Nope.
Maybe
Yeah.
not.
Can I just, I think where it is actually in the land use chapter.
Okay.
And it's land use 1.4, engage volunteers to help with, well, this is specifically downtown maintenance and explore ways that make the program financially sustainable. And then it talks about seeking funding for cleaning up and, taking care of the gardens and green space downtown. So it's maybe a little more attached to that. At least that first action.
Right?
That to me feels like a much better place for the first action item.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry. And then the poultry egg share thing.
It's purity poultry now without the other O. Okay, I'll leave that if I need to.
Jonah, do you have any suggestions?
I guess my main question is if this strategy, if we want to keep that strategy, do we have an action to go with it, or is it its own action? I guess the poultry and egg share, I don't know where that fits in. Or maybe that just is 6.3, support food process and distribution, industries, I guess now.
Nancy?
Could you scroll up and so I could be reminded of what the goal is for number 6? Conserve garden and support family. So I could see how the strategy could be to identify city properties that are not being used. And then period, and not mixing in the whole thing, the idea of how you're going to use it or something.
So perhaps the strategy is really an action item.
That could be.
So it might, it might come under 6.2 and it might say just identify town-owned land that could be, used for additional food production or something like that. That would lose the poultry and egg share thing, but
It's a poultry.
So didn't we at some point earlier already discuss supporting new community gardens? I think I saw it before. I can't remember where.
take a look.
Possibly
that
in the
could-
land use world.
It could have been.
Yeah, I'm not finding it in land use, so. So I suggest wordsmithing this, so that it's not work with neighbors. I think it could stay a strategy and just be, identify town-owned land that could be used for, food production.
If you did that, then a strategy could be to support community food and flower gardens, including the poultry and egg share or something. That could be an implementation action.
I'm gonna just, for those of you who are watching, I'm gonna just drag this one over. We're gonna move first actions going to land use 1.4 and say what you were saying in.
The part that you deleted from the strategy,
Yep.
like one of the implementation actions could be work with community groups to create community, I forget exactly how it was worded, but community gardens.
Okay.
In other words, that all of the attempt at supporting food production is not just with farmers, but it's also at the neighborhood level.
And so do we get rid of this specific thing around poultry? Can we assume that that's part of oh, you said including poultry.
Yeah, it could be included in that first implementation.
Yeah.
Community gardens and or poultry egg share. That's it.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. And does anybody have any other? Any other actions with this, or does that satisfy?
Makes sense.
I see thumbs up. Everybody okay with that? All right. On to 7. Okay.
Why is that? You want me to lead this one? Are you?
I can
looking
do it
at
if you
secondly?
want.
I don't mind doing it. We're not gonna read them though, right?
Nope, I'm just gonna say
so-
people have.
We want to start with the 7.1.
Yep. So,
Any, Nancy?
The first bullet point there, partner with Native American tribes, maybe make that 2 separate action items or implementation, one being work with Native American tribes to identify and better understand important historical locations in blah, blah, blah. And then the second one would be about the preserving and
say that again.
so right now it's partner with the American tribes to preserve strategic da, da, da. But I think there needs to be an action, an implementation before that, which is working with Native American tribes to identify and better understand important historical locations and cultural practices. So in other words, there needs to be first an understanding of it. And then the second thing would be to preserve the strategic locations.
Okay. I'll need you to read that sentence to me one more time. I'm sorry. My mother took shorthand. I never did.
That's yeah. Okay. You may want it worded differently. So work with Native American tribes to identify and better understand important historical locations and cultural practices in the past and present.
Important cultural
Practices,
practices.
historical locations and cultural practices.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And then the next one would be about preserving
Yeah.
the land. Yeah, okay, yeah. Don't need to change that. Yeah.
Okay.
Had a question about the third bullet point, develop signage. Who would do that? Somehow maybe we don't need to know that, but somehow I felt like it was a little.
Have you guys ever been to Memorial Hall in Old Deerfield? Seen their exhibit? They have all the old,
Mhm.
they have like basically like late 19th century plaques, and they have like a little drawdown thing you can do that tells the history in a different way. So instead of saying like the savages massacred all the women and children here, it goes down, it's like members of this, tribal grouping came and they kidnapped these people, and even though, and some people were killed, but these other folks they thought were dead and emigrated to Canada, like that kind of thing. And so it doesn't destroy the history, but it provides different context, which I really appreciate as a history teacher. Like, I think that's helpful to see.
But I would say it in that kind of history in Greenfield is invisible.
Right, exactly. So I love this item. I think this is really great.
Okay.
For that reason.
So just leave it like that.
Yeah, so that's what I
comfortable with
read
that.
it as. I think your point about who would do it is a great one.
Mhm.
You know,
Do you have ideas on that?
I mean, the Pocumtuck Valley Memorial Associations that did it at Memorial Hall. So I don't know if they'd be willing, but
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
say
Yeah.
like they've done it before, and it's
So they're
relatively.
bigger than Deerfield, yeah.
When was the Deerfield massacre? Because they did it for the 300th anniversary of it, which was this century. So it was in the last 20 years they did this work. It's the same people there. I took a National Endowment of Humanities course at Deerfield a couple years back. So that's when I got a chance to see it. But it's Helena is one of the women there. Can't remember their other ones' names, but
Great ideas. Mhm.
Did you ask for the date?
the Deerfield massacre, yeah.
1704, wasn't it in February 1704?
That's it. Yep. So 2004, they did this update to their exhibit.
Mm.
Anything else
The-
on this one?
The fourth bullet, work with Native American. I might prefer to see it say support Native American tribes. Again, there's that question of who would work with the Native American tribes. But maybe now that you've identified PVMA, maybe it's okay to leave the word support. I don't know.
They definitely
Or
are the
work
kind of
with
people
that.
that struggle with those questions, you know, like to give them as much credit as possible. They are very much aware of that kind of thinking. Yeah.
Mhm.
They're great, great class.
Yeah, they're great. Mhm.
Moving on? Sure.
Oh, I had a comment about, I'm sorry, I had a lot of comments in this section. Just in the implementation for 7.2, in the implementation action, I would love to see acknowledge a little bit more of what we have because we've been doing art projects for years and years. Actually, I just saw the B sidewalk vanished just last week because it was repaved. So anyway, but we have the bee sculptures all over town, which is such a big deal. And then there's the dinosaur work, well, and also at the garage and the bees doing the festival every year and the dinosaur banner and sculptures around dinosaurs and the history, the mural on Veterans Mall, et cetera, that sort of thing. And I'm happy to send you a list later if you,
So how does that fit into strategies and implementation actions?
because.
Suggestion for a new. action?
So right now it says, continue to prioritize public arts and programs to foster life. And then the implementation action is promote additional sidewalk programs like the Appalachian sidewalk. So I guess I would like to read additional art projects such as the Veterans Mall mural, the dinosaurs at the garage, you know, and the bee sculptures, just be more robust in
I like
we
changing
have
the
such a
word.
rich, we've done this for so many years. We have such a rich history of this that I just love to see that be visible.
The word sidewalk for me, I was wanting to change to just a more public art or something.
It's a good sponsor murals.
Yeah.
A TD Bank in particular, I would love them to do anything with that.
Can you guys hear okay? Okay.
What do they do to like keep them up to date and stuff like when they start fading or
It's a great question.
issues and stuff like that? How do we maintain them? Was there any program for that?
We're in the process of figuring that out for the bees. No,
Okay.
there's no program, which is problematic.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely see a lack of maintenance is like a huge issue in our society in general, so I totally agree that's something we should be concerned about.
And it's not real hard if you plan ahead,
Right,
you know?
but planning is not always something we're good at as a culture.
Along those lines, I would love actually another action item to say something along the lines of engage in public-private partnership to create resources to maintain existing public arts.
It's a great idea.
That'd be great.
Okay. Just in the future. And who would do that? Somebody like you?
You could put in my department. And you could add Crossroads Cultural District, Local Cultural Council, GBA.
Community Preservation Act fit in there
Mhm.
too.
Let's see.
Be that same list for both of those
Oops.
boxes.
You did I miss?
CPC or CPA, however you wanna.
All right. Formatting later. Okay. Moving on. Nancy, we're on 7.3 right
Seven
now.
point three. Just when we're talking about historic preservation and that, I think it's important to clarify what we mean. So, for example, we could say develop and implement a plan for preserving Greenfield's colonial and industrial history, as opposed to the Native Americans. I mean, I don't know, it just seems like making that clear would be helpful. And
Is that in the strategy that you're?
let's see, let me reread this. Okay. Wrote these notes 2 weeks ago. I did review them. but-
Problematic right there.
I know, I did review them, but did I review them well enough? Okay. So one idea, okay, I was trying to clarify that we're talking about preserving stuff after the colonials arrived. So one idea was to create a maybe a goal that stated that we're, preserving Greenfield's colonial industrial heritage. And then like in the initial strategy right here, a lot of those things are really more implementation actions. So reuse of historic buildings, creating local historic districts, making initial nominations, et cetera, et cetera. So just a thought that I had.
So I'm not following exactly what you're
I know.
asking for.
Okay,
Because this doesn't, the goal, the overarching goal does not, identify any. It just talked about
right.
history of human settlement in Greenfield, period. And then the first strategy is
all about
around
the Native
indigenous.
Americans.
Yep.
Right, like, yeah. So this strategy, this is 2.3, 7.31 says, develop and implement a plan for historic preservation that includes, and then we've got the list of creative reuse of historic buildings that are, those seem like implementation actions as opposed to a strategy thing. So I felt like that we're mixing the strategy with implementation.
Okay, so you're suggesting taking out all of the description of how to do it, like,
And move it to the implementation.
okay with others? Completely mess these up, that's okay. Okay, so you want me to take out all of this? That,
So you can end after the word preservation. Correct.
but you want it to explicitly say, oops, something happened. You want
Well, I
it,
would prefer for it to say, a plan for, Greenfield's cultural and industrial history and be, the other one above was very clear. It's about Native Americans. So this one, I'd like it to be clear that it's about the colonial and
Make a timeline.
industrial history.
right here, right?
Um,
Oh, it's not showing up yet. It will in a moment.
okay.
There it is.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where I would put it.
All right.
I'm just wrestling with making it that specific and like there are going to be more periods of history that we're going to want to preserve after that. And I feel like that's not all of Greenfield's history that we want to preserve. So I get what you're saying about we've carved out Native American, but that to me feels appropriate and important to carve out so that it's not.
So what history is the more modern history after the?
I feel like it's just a plan for historic preservation. I'm not objective, whatever, I'm fine with it there, but I just don't share the need to get that specific about what's being preserved. I think the important thing is that we're preserving it, and I think, I don't know.
A lot of the Native American talk based off of location specifically and not the overall town, wasn't it like locations where there's artifacts and stuff? So you were talking specific to them?
You're talking about the last one?
With the whole Native American topic. That's why like keeping it more vague on just,
History.
yeah, on the history.
Well, I guess I'm thinking even here under 7.3, if we said colonial and industrial history, like Wilson's is a historic building to be preserved, but I don't think that falls under colonial or industrial.
Right.
That's the thing I want to see,
Interesting.
is give people a cudgel to try to keep that metal siding from coming off. I mean, it's serious, like in all
I am
seriousness.
the only person who finds that metal siding like endearing, but that's
My
fine.
buddy who's an art teacher who also likes brutalist buildings and
The
he likes that
advantage of
side.
taking it off
Yeah.
is the people who live there are gonna get windows.
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, the.
But I guess I feel like there's probably other buildings of other historical importance that we might want to preserve that aren't going to fall into colonial and industrial.
Okay,
And I don't know what we're gaining by being that specific. But also this is not the hill on which I'm going to die, and I'm happy to.
You can also argue the industrial history continues.
I think if we
Yeah,
just
too.
remove the colonial industrial history and stopped it where you initially said, Nancy, and then
okay.
I think that the action items seem to me that they're specific enough.
So would it just be, put a verb there, support creative use of historic buildings, creation, et cetera.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking breaking that long sentence into 3 different implementation actions. So. But it could all be lumped together.
I think it could stay.
I prefer to do that.
Yeah. Everybody good with this? John, do you have anything to add?
I like that it says facades rather than the whole building, because, you know, again, there are some buildings that would be hard to readapt if we kept like the First National Bank, for example. You know, rip that whole thing down, keep the front, and let's move on, you know? Like, again, I really don't want to give NIMBYs more cudgels at which to beat down progress. And that's my main thing I keep thinking about. Historic preservation is often used as a Trojan horse to keep things from happening. Like San
Right.
Francisco is a good example. Like the reason that city is so expensive is all these Victorian houses, beautiful Victorian neighborhoods, that you can't do anything with because they're all preserved historically, which jacks the price up and makes it so only millionaires can live there. So tear down a couple of Victorians, build some apartments, you know, like I'll be fine with
Okay.
it. Popular opinion.
Oh,
I have a question about the second action that says complete and publish an inventory of natural, historic, and cultural areas. Do we really mean historic natural as opposed to natural, historic, so an inventory of historic, natural, and cultural areas?
sorry, I
That
don't,
makes sense?
Yes, it does.
It does?
Oddly. Yep, because if this is about preserving history, we're preserving the historic natural and the historic cultural areas. We're right, we're not.
Yes, that's what I'm
just
trying
the
to get
natural.
at.
okay, thank you.
I just think about the Wilson's building too, kind of restores the historic facade, destroying another era of history. Like you, whatever, you know, flavor you love of time, you can always make an argument for.
Mhm.
And again, I just really don't want people to use this stuff as an excuse not to make changes.
Mhm.
And I'm a history teacher, like I don't know if that gives me extra credit, but like, I love the penthouse, but I also don't want it to be a straitjacket.
Got it. Anybody else on 7.3? 7.4?
What powers do the historic commission have?
Anything? No?
No, I think that's a good item. I need to be revitalized.
Okay. Last one, you guys. Rule number 8.
Perfect, let's move on.
Nancy, did you have anything on 8? Or did anyone
I
else?
remember. Sorry. I'm a little behind the table here.
The second one's a little duplicitous of that last one we just edited, the public art.
I agree, and I think
Mhm.
there's also similar in the downtown portion in the land use area, so. Does anyone object?
So.
Nope.
Aye.
Welcome.
Does anyone object to deleting the second action item because it's
think
sort of
it's elsewhere.
redundant? Good, going. Okay, bye-bye.
I have one comment about the number 8 is the word town probably needs to be city.
That's good.
Yep. In both the goal and the third, I guess, townwide, citywide.
Control F.
Yeah,
And where?
the third bullet point, the third
Okay, we
implementation
got
action.
citywide. Thank you. All right. Anything else on this? I'll fix all of the messed up formatting.
I don't have anything to offer other than it felt. I wish that there had been more besides just create a marketing plan. Like I yearned for something else to achieve this goal, but I am not coming to the table with a suggestion, so I'm going to learn to live with the marketing plan.
You mean beyond just?
Well, I think we should strive to make Greenfield's natural, historic, and cultural resources an integral part of the city's identity. And I feel like there should be other ways to do that besides just a marketing plan, but I don't know what they are. And today is not going to be the day when I figure that out. So.
But when you do, you can do it even if it's not in this plan.
Have festivals like Bee Fest.
Thank you.
That kind of stuff.
I don't
You could just break it into 2 pieces.
No, I like it as one piece and I'm embracing that it's the last one. I just wanted to voice that thought. And
But one thing for me, that would make it better is if we made it establish and implement it, like just creating a plan seems like a funny
I
thing
do
for
like
us to
that.
do.
Yep.
Right. Good. Okay,
Amazing.
okay, let's stop sharing screen. Yes,
Something right at the top.
and there was much rejoicing. So the next part of the meeting, we're going to have just a general discussion about what we might do with this now that we're done, okay? So I'm gonna just paint the landscape as I understand it. Is that okay?
Well, I have a question. Is at the beginning of the meeting, I asked about the agricultural section
Yes,
and you said do that later. So is that?
you're talking about aspirational statements.
I'm talking about some things I might like to see that we glossed over. Now we're looking at the big picture and there are a few things that were missing that I wanted to talk about,
Okay,
which sounds a little different than what you just said, but maybe.
okay, how about if we have the conversation and if it's still unsatisfied, you're suggesting going back to the document we just finished?
Correct, yes.
I would prefer that we moved on, and then if it still feels that way, and it
Come
could,
back later.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
yeah.
Okay, I'm happy with that. I can do that.
So here's the landscape as I know it, and I haven't been, involved in this that long. I'm sure Carol can add a lot to this, but as I know it, we had a master plan that was completed in 2014. That's the master plan that the city has followed since then, and that's basically what our task is as this committee is to, help the board and see that that plan gets implemented. Then in this past year, the Conway School, the city hired the Conway School to update 2 chapters of the master plan, the land use chapter and the natural, historical, and cultural resources chapter. So now we have 2 things. We have essentially a new report, a shorter report, much shorter than the 2014 one, of course. And then we have this set of recommendations, so goals, strategies, action items. And so what I've been thinking about off and on for months now is how do we mesh those things? And so there's some things I know and some things I have no idea about. One thing I know is that the planning department is ultimately the entity that accepts, adopts, whatever the right word is, the recommendations. as we have just finished crafting this. So there's that piece, but then after that is where does this all reside and how does it reside? And I thought about, I know we have the Sustainable Greenfields, I think it's called Sustainable Greenfields Work or something like that, that web page. That's not you?
We have an SGIC webpage.
Yeah,
It's my department, but I did not do that.
okay, okay. So I could.
I mean, I actually did the work that's it listed, but
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, one thing that I would suggest, and then we can delve into how like things like aspirational goals can continue to get carried forward. Would suggest having something like a story map, if people are familiar with story map, as a way to communicate where we are in the master plan process. So to communicate, we have this 2014 plan, and then over here, we have this other new updated piece. I think it would be very difficult to integrate those into that old document because the formatting is so different. But I think there could be ways to create a very, engaging visual tool that I have experience doing, so I'd be willing to do that. That would allow people to see the updated goals, would allow people to read the old plan, and allow people to read the text of the new plan. So that's kind of what I've been thinking about, but I would love to hear what other people are thinking about what we do now that this is done. And, a different topic altogether is what happens come the new year and refocusing, no longer focusing on updating these recommendations. So, but for right now, how do people envision incorporating this material? Nancy.
Well, I always say too much. I was sort of waiting to see if someone else was going to speak before me, but I'm a very visual person. I love story map. I just love visual things like that. So, yeah, I'm really curious, actually, what would that look like? Because we've never had a good way of communicating with people about the master plan. It's never worked. So, yeah, it sounds exciting. And in terms of integrating it, it's 2 chapters that are basically replacing the 2 chapters that we had before. So to me, integrating it wouldn't be so difficult, but maybe I'm wrong about
Do you
that.
mean if we used a visual type thing, it wouldn't be as hard or?
Well, actually, if you really wanted to go, I don't know, you'd want to do this, but wouldn't it be great to have a visual of each of the 7 chapters, for example, and just toss the document that's so unwieldy that no one ever looks at.
I just have a quick logistical question. Why do we only update 2 chapters?
That's what we had funding for, and that also fit within the Conway schools, both their curriculum and their sort of time management for
Okay.
their winter project.
Yeah.
So those were the best aligned with what the Conway School wants students to learn in their winter term. Yeah.
I love a story map. All on board with that, especially if that's something that you have the capability to create, because I promise it's not something I do. We're doing a story map for our housing study, and the one thing that we have a story map, might not be exactly the word, but a visual breakdown online. And one thing that they've incorporated that I wish we could incorporate into the master plan are some metrics or data or measurable things. And it, for me, would be exciting as either a citizen or a department head to see like, oh, look, these things we've accomplished. And we can tell that because the clicker on the front page says we've accomplished 80 out of 300 goals, or they've all turned green instead of red, or something that might make the document feel a little more engaging as opposed to just a PDF. I don't know if that's too big an ask and that's a different project altogether, but that's my aspirational.
We can
not
dream.
statement,
We can
but
dream.
It's something that's either data or updating constantly, so that as a person, you might want to go back and check in and see
I
where
love
we're
that.
at.
So I could not imagine, unless I had part-time paid job.
Well, I'm
Bringing-
not suggesting you do this.
Yeah, bringing
Or
in
for
all
free.
of the 2014 plan, and nor would I think that anybody would interact with it any better if it was in a story map. They'd run out of
Yeah.
steam, after a few scrolls, but some very high level, here's the aspiration, here's the overarching goals, and click here to read, the strategies and action items or something like that. So I think that is doable in terms of the metrics. If there were metrics, or like Nancy was talking about, a goal for preserving a certain number of acres of agricultural land, for instance, those could be things that could be pulled out, but it would require somebody paying attention to it. First of all, determining how much already is preserved. And I think maybe that is in the 2024 update. But then, after that, what happens to it? Who would be those step? Francois?
What I would find really helpful is if something like what you're talking about was like searchable. Say I was interested in a specific project and I was wondering, gee, I wonder if it fits in one of the strategic plan, action items, for instance. Could I enter something, some search word that would then take me to the correct, to the places in the plan that would address that?
Control F. I mean, you can control F it now in the PDF. That's not.
Well, I just respond to that. So I was playing around a little bit with how the formatting might be able to work. And or you it either looks nice in terms of formatting, or it's functional, but it's not both, at least in the story map version that I'm using. So, you can take a snip of the image of the spreadsheet with the action items or whatever and plop it in underneath some aspirational language, but then it's not searchable. Or you can bring in a really ugly table. So, I mean, I could work up a couple of different ideas for the next time around if people are interested in seeing some options. So
That would be nice.
I had just two thoughts as we're having this conversation about presenting it. The first one is our audience is obviously the public in Greenfield, but it also, in a lot of ways, has to be the decision makers. We have all these stakeholders and departments. So one of the thoughts I'm having is, how do we get it in front of the people that can actually do the plan? Do we invite them to this meeting? Do we send an email to each department head with a story map once a month until we can tell they read it? Because we know they're busy. And then the other thing, I was thinking about is we have that giant iPad on the common. I don't know.
It's working.
Is that right? Perfect. So we can use it for something else. If we put the story map there, and you do see people, which blows my mind, walk up to it and play around with it.
For the big selfies.
Yeah. So is that what it's for? It's just.
It's a directory of businesses, and it typically is working, but I think because of all the Berkshire Gas and infrastructure work that's going on over there.
But what if we took that over and have a story map on it? And you know what I mean? It's and just.
On behalf of Christian, I'm internally freaking out, but keep.
Okay, sorry.
No, it's fine.
I love the idea of the public again, it's
I like that,
right
yeah.
there and they can come and touch it like a museum exhibit or something in one of those, touch me museums. I don't know how feasible it is. I have no idea what technology undergirds that thing.
Does Christian program?
It just pulls automatically. So there's very little programming. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know if it could do that, but I can ask Christian and he can find out.
It'd be sweet if it could. I mean, again, to be able to have this thing actually be out in public would make people more aware of it than they would be otherwise,
Jonah's got his hand up.
Hey, Jonah.
Hey, I'm in favor of these ideas. First point. I think your point about getting it in front of folks in the city. I mean, to me, this brings up the big question that we talked about some meetings ago, and where Carol expressed frustration about trying to implement this and butting up against various roadblocks along the way. I think as a sharing I think that's sort of one part of this. I really support that idea of a story map or some other ways of sharing it. But I do wonder how, what other role that we can play in helping to implement it, in helping to advance it within the city, is really and I'm just, I guess, looking to our department heads, I guess, which for the most part is Carol and Amy that are at these meetings consistently, and thinking about what's an effective approach.
Do either of you?
An
wanna-
effective approach in terms of, sorry, I was emailing Christian,
Reach.
getting the information in front of a department head.
Or just try, like, what we can do as a committee to help with implementing it. Like, we're the implementation committee. Like, what can we do to help the city move these along? Some folks, like you two department heads, are clearly invested and are here and engaged in the conversation and are up to speed. And then others we know have a harder time buying in or having the time to do that.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know what this committee actually could do, because I think many of the reasons for people not buying in or not implementing maybe some of the things are things, it's not that they don't like the ideas or don't know about them or haven't heard about them. It's that they perceive it as expensive, or it doesn't fall into the specifics of the grant funding that is actually available, or the priorities of the administration might change. I don't think it's a thing that this committee necessarily could fix, but I'll think on it. I don't know what you think.
Well, yeah. I mean, I guess I just wonder what we're doing, like, as the implementation committee. That's just my big picture question that I've asked all along since being here. Just like, what are we doing here if we're not able to actually implement the committee as our implement the plan as our name says?
Same question. Since 10 years ago, since this committee started, same question. And Nancy's already just said that we've had a terrible time doing any outreach or letting anyone know about the master plan. So it seems that nothing works. You even said nothing works. So, and you've been on the committee the whole
I'll be
time.
more optimistic, but.
No,
please finish your
it's
sentence.
fine.
Mhm.
Why finish my thought? Because it's like,
Hmm.
it's up to me to do it. And so I'm doing it.
I don't think nothing works. And I actually, in our department, we use the master plan as support for grants all the time. And as sort of guardrails and guidelines for the work that we do. So I think it's valuable, and I don't know if we do that because it's the right thing or because I feel guilty coming here every month and I feel like I need to do that, but I think, I don't know.
Yeah, and it seems like your two departments, sorry, it seems like your
That's
two
okay.
departments are more engaged with it, because of you two, most likely. So I guess the question is how, there are many other departments that need to be involved for the sake of the entire plan. So how do we go about that? But sorry, go ahead, Nancy.
Well, along those lines, my understanding is that it has been used for many years when the budget is made up each year and the department heads are required to justify their approach using the master plan. That wasn't actually what what I originally was raising my hand for. Was I'm a sort of a public education person, which is, I know, useless, but nevertheless, somehow it makes me. I just feel like, well, anyway, I'll say my public education. So, for example, just before COVID, we had an extremely successful event around downtown Greenfield. So over 60 people attended, and we worked hard to sort of pull information about what has been achieved, and we solicited information from other people as to we had a lot of people engaged. And so I guess what I'm trying to say. So it seems like the combination of having a new chapter on open space, for example, having a new open space committee just begs for some kind of a public meeting that has to do with open space. Now that would, we'd have to think about what the action items are, what we want to achieve with it. But nevertheless, now we have this document. And as far as this storyboard stuff, it's like once, it seems like what you were saying, John, like once you have visuals, you can use them in so many ways. And once you have them, it's going to create ideas, like putting it on that electronic board or something. So there's my optimism after saying my pessimism.
So I'm going to call myself first and then Amy. One thing that has nagged at me for several months now is the fact that when the Conway School was doing the plan update, we had a couple of public events, which were also, the first one in particular was highly attended. I mean, I can't off the top of my head remember, but it was maybe 80 people or something.
Yeah.
And then, we took people's contact information and we talked about following up with them, and then nothing ever happened. So I feel like we have an obligation to the people who came to that meeting several months ago now to let them know what we're up to. And it may be that what they end up getting is simply the updated 2 chapters and the recommendations, or however we decide we want to, feed it to people. But I do feel like there was engagement, there was excitement, there was interest. And so going back to those people would be a good place to start for sure.
Yeah, people are excited about this topic. Yeah, it's just time for us to keep moving forward.
In the spirit of maybe feeling like there is a role for this committee, I think that one thing that we could do, not to attract the ire of other department heads, is we could go by chapter or by section or area of interest or department and ask department heads to come in and talk to us about the work that they've been doing on the items in the master plan. Not as like a punitive, but like hey, we haven't heard from you, I don't know, schools in a while, and we'd love to get an update. And I know there's this status column, and I don't know how in the past that's been updated, if we ask department heads to update it, or if this committee just takes their best guess, but we could also do something with that column.
John?
Just to piggyback on what Amy was saying, say we have a follow-up meeting to those planning meetings for the master plan. Getting, again, decision makers and, in particular the political ones, like the mayor and the city council, to attend a meeting where they see the public are in support of ideas, I think will be really helpful in making them happen. Because none of this is going to happen without, again, political buy-in. And we have a strong mayor system, and that means, basically. That's kind of the main piece. As far as those meetings that you mentioned are concerned, trying to get zoning changes done, one of the things I'm going to be mentioning a whole bunch at the public hearing is those meetings happened and the top priority of folks was housing at all of them. The Main Street meeting was the same thing. It's been a consistent piece. That's just one small chunk of this plan, but still, it's still relevant.
I'm aware that we're a little bit over on this. I mean, I think this is really important to talk about. I just want to check with Carol. Is it okay with you if we go a little bit longer since you?
Yeah, like I said, I don't know if you saw, I did send an email while I was in another meeting.
Yes.
So I didn't even know this was on the
Okay.
agenda. I don't know why
This means.
I wasn't notified earlier.
Item, so.
Yeah.
We can go a little longer on this, and then the Green Communities Climate Leader Community designation can be on the next meeting. That would work fine for me. I don't see
That
any.
would be, I'm just thinking of the timing. What's the next meeting in
It's going
December?
to be in November.
In November, the end of November. Okay. Because there's a deadline for applying for
I'm
this.
not applying.
Oh, you're not applying?
Nope.
Okay, well, that's helpful for me to know.
Which I did send you in an email, I think, to you and Susan.
I did not see it. A long time ago or recent?
A while
Oh,
ago,
no.
actually.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
And I know we met on it, so maybe I'm conflating things,
Yeah,
but
Laura.
they're in the middle of changing the stretch code.
That's good.
So
That might help.
we want to wait until it works the way it was intended. And it doesn't preclude us from continuing to get grant money, which is what we're working on and doing projects.
Excellent. Do folks have other ideas around the how we're going to roll this out or make public aware of it or incorporate it with the old plan. I'm curious what you think, Carol, if you don't mind me asking about, like, we've got that. And Nancy, you both were there, you know, at the beginning when that was developed. And just wondering if you've had even a moment to think about, like, how does that old plan now interact with this new, you know, these updated pieces?
I have spent some time on that, and that's one of the things I wanted to talk about.
Hit it.
Because I had looked at the old plan, and there were some issues, some things in there that we don't have integrated into the.
Okay.
And you know, so I just think at some point we need to think about that
Okay.
at another meeting or something.
How do you think we could best, I mean, it sounds like it would have to be something that you or somebody else was willing to do the homework on to determine what's missing.
Well, I've made a short list. I could email it to you, whatever. So, you know, then people want to talk about it.
Uh-huh. And so you're saying that there's things in the 2014, those two chapters that have been updated that you feel did not get carried forward?
Correct.
Okay.
Do you have a through view?
Excuse me?
I'm assuming you have it at the top of your,
I do,
your
but
fingertips.
it seems like there's not enough time to talk about
I
it.
think
well, just like a quick,
there is, because there's nobody from the public on,
Okay,
there's no
okay,
public comment. And I do want to make sure we leave time,
okay.
about 10 minutes.
So, I would like to see the vision statement of the two new chapters, because then I was asking about, I know it's somewhere buried in the Conway work that I presumably could access, but I haven't. So some of that may resolve the things that I think are missing. Some of it is language mostly. I guess one very concrete thing is that there was the original master plan, number 2 goal is recreation, health, and well-being. So there's nothing specifically about recreation, for example, health and well-being. And we could, you know, add that. So
Well,
that's-
I just want to remind you that we did talk about that and during the planning process with the Conway School, and acknowledge that because there is a very own open space and recreation plan that was just updated in 2021, that we will refer people to that plan. That's not something that we.
Yeah, but
determined we would
I think that's a little tricky, because then that becomes the question of, well, how are we going to integrate these two things? So to have that piece be a piece that's outside of the master plan and referred to, maybe it works, but there's nothing else that's like that. So it doesn't need to be in depth, but yes, just it could be a goal, and then you could refer, but at least it's visible in this plan.
Got it.
The next one is the third goal of the master plan. Says it talks about biodiversity and healthy living. So I don't know if, let's see. Rule number 3, our natural world and scenic rural and agricultural landscapes will be protected, preserved, improved, support biodiversity, healthy living in Greenfield. Yeah, so I think in that case.
so that's not being addressed at all?
No, in that case, the topic is being addressed. I would love to see those words, healthy living and biodiversity included. There were a lot of that type of thing in our original master plan that had to do with health and why we're doing these things. And I just haven't seen that in this version. And I would love to see.
I'm smiling because you were on the subcommittee with me and Jonah working with the Conway School. So it was just
Right.
something that we just.
I guess so. I mean, I guess I
Uh-huh.
never sat down and compared the two side by
Yeah.
side and came up with that. But now that's where I'm thinking is like, now that we have this new thing, I'm sitting back and looking at the whole thing. So
Uh-huh.
that's where those two things came
Okay.
from. And there were some other little minor language, but it, you know, like, You see, there was also, I think, in the second goal, language about simple things, but biodiversity, providing beauty, shade, sequestering carbon, just making it, I don't know, a single sentence that sort of says it all. And then there was back to the thing about the
Well, so
agriculture.
I'm gonna just interject.
Yeah.
So, you know, we did develop those kinds of statements. So here's a statement from the Conway School Plan under land use, and it says, learning from the past and envisioning a future. We envision a balanced relationship between Greenfield's lively urban core and its wild and working open spaces. We will strive for mindful patterns of development. This includes concentrating new development in already developed areas. Our goal is to recognize and cultivate the benefits provided by the natural environment to help create a comfortable, safe, and climate resilient city. So there are that kind of.
Yeah, that's what I was asking. I wanted to see the vision again because I couldn't remember it.
Okay,
So thank you for reading that.
sure. Yep, and we have, I can resend you the copy of the Conway School Plan if you don't.
Yeah, well, just the vision, because I think
Yeah, okay,
so the thing is, if you're talking about replacing these two chapters, then the two chapters include the vision
Mhm.
and include the goals and the strategies and the implementation. So just
Absolutely.
having those as one document
Mhm.
would help me a lot
Uh-huh.
in understanding the big picture, how it fits together. And then there was the piece, the agricultural aspirational goals, which I've mentioned a couple of times.
Mhm. Got it. Okay. Does anybody else have any thoughts on the jamming together of the old and the new?
So we should get it in front of as many people who are willing to read it as possible.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. So we'll move on to, thank you for this, and I'll plan on putting on the agenda for next time. I'll try to mock up a little bit of a story map, a start of a story map, give people some different options of how things might look. Don't get your hopes up too high again, because,
Hey, anything's better than what we have.
well, I started with a free version. I now have a paid version, so it's possible that there might be more, you know, more possibilities in that than there were in the free one, the
What?
the bargain basement story map.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, which doesn't have to entail using maps at all if we don't want.
No, I mean, what I've seen are very impressive,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't try it.
What?
I wouldn't try it.
Oh, you wouldn't.
It looks above my skill level.
My
I
vote
wish
is
I did.
always for more maps.
Yeah. Well, they've done a huge effort in Northampton for the redesign Main Street project with all their different scenarios.
Pushback. If they had a ton of pushback, at least. in the
Oh, yeah,
beginning,
they still do. Yeah.
Which I'm sure is coming.
Yep.
Okay, so no public present as far as I can see, so we're gonna move on to the next topic, which is our committee members and our term expirations. I looked them up. My term expires at the end of this year, and Nancy's term expires mid-2025.
They're supposed to align. I don't know.
Okay.
I did ask about that.
Okay,
What was the term of it?
It's 3 years typically and they're staggered.
Oh, my goodness. Okay.
And then can they renew?
Yeah.
I think it happened because we changed the date on which, I don't know, we're electing our officers or something.
Right, because you were on vacation one year during the July and I got voted chair. So that's how that came about. So I'm surprised
Is
your
that the
term is still
reason?
July. Yeah.
I will say that I got a note from the mayor's office to ask if I was going to re-up, and I actually am not going to re-up. So
No.
I just have other things that I'm going to concentrate on. There's some big things happening right now, and I'm just putting my energy somewhere else. So I will do my best to pull together a lot of what we've talked about, because I think without having a way forward with this, nobody knows about it, and it's, you know, it's not a good investment. So we want to make sure that the investment we've put in going through meeting after meeting, going through these recommendations, which we all love so much that, we get a chance to, bring it to the public. So, and I saw Erin Anholt, she said that the mayor's office had somebody in mind already. So if folks have somebody in mind, you might want to hurry up and let them know, because it sounds like they have somebody. And then
Brace yourselves. Just
No,
kidding.
really. It's all very mysterious.
I could tell them that they have to have a high level of proficiency at story map. That's like the only requirement. And then, Nancy, just so you have that in mind coming up in a few months too. So if we have anybody in mind, or if Nancy's going to re-up. So those aren't surprises. And I don't think there was anything else in 2025. So,
Anyone else whose term?
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised Hannah's still on the committee. I haven't seen her.
When's her term up?
Time.
Here, let me just pull it up.
George is just.
And Jonah went.
George is sick today. Yeah.
Mm,
I don't know.
You know,
Okay, so Hannah's expires in December of 2025.
okay.
So it's next year.
Wow.
Jonas expires in December of 2025. And then the other expirations are Mike and Francoise, both of whom expire in December of 2027. And then there's no expiration dates for the city employees.
Right.
It's a hell we can't change.
It's a life.
I wasn't told that when I agreed to sign on.
It's a life sentence, people. So,
I would, if I may,
yes, please.
I have a tremendous amount of frustration with this committee, as I think is very palpable. I'm sorry. I mean, I was a little upset that I wasn't even approached about being on the agenda today, and I learned it by getting the agenda. And I did really try to make that happen, but that's really, a little much. But also to hear, I have worked my butt off for this city, accomplishing so many things in the master plan, and to constantly hear that nothing is happening, nothing's getting done by the people that are supposed to be supporting city staff and helping to, encourage things to happen. It's just, I deal with that every day, every project I work on everything. And that's hard enough, but this is supposed to be like where I feel like, all right, everybody's got my back, and especially not to single me out, but it's in my name, sustainability, But I would like to go back to Jonah's question, because I echo it very wholeheartedly. It's been, well, you're trapped for another year. So that means you've already been on this thing for almost 2 years. And from the get-go, I remember clearly you asking, like, what is the role of this committee? And we still have not really gotten there. And having done this for 10 years, I can tell you that it has been that and when to meet are the two most frequent discussions that we have. And I will say that the master plan has been very well implemented. There has been an incredible amount of success across the city, across all departments. People have really embraced it, engaged with it, and been very proactive. And so I think maybe it's time, and in a way, I guess this revisioning of these two chapters is the next step. But maybe this committee needs to, I don't know of any other committees that sit and talk every month pretty much regularly about okay, what do we do? What is our purpose? And pretty much you get the people that think they're here to tell department heads what to do. And then, everyone has ideas, but then it's like, okay, so where is it? Where's your message? Where's the, and I find, which has been said before by others, that it's a unique balance when people have ideas, but not the ability to make them happen, and expect that already overtaxed employees are gonna continue to shoulder it and then hear how it's not enough all the time. And so I'm sorry, that is not as tactful as maybe I could have done, but I also just think that we really need, a master plan is supposed to last 10 years. I've said this over and over again. We're at 10 years, we're past 10 years. The world has changed. When you talk about, I was just trying to find an article I just read. It's becoming mainstream. I've been bringing it to this committee for years and I feel dismissed at looking at what I called social capital and bringing in ideas, and nobody, whatever, even wanted to talk about it. And now that's, the pandemic brought a lot of that to light. But now there's, I mean, FERCog's hiring a livability planner. That's amazing. Resilience is top of the heap. That's what we need to be doing. We're not doing any of that. We're missing out on every MVP grant. Getting 20 grand is like, why even bother? You know, there are millions of dollars that should be coming here to make things more resilient. And I try, but Joan is right. Like, how do you, or, you know, whatever's been discussed here, things need to happen to make these things get adopted. And so I don't know, is that something this committee is up for? Because it means actually like researching things, reading things, talking to people, coming up with like solid plans and actually helping to implement them. It's education, it's outreach, it's having requirements, it's having, I don't know what you call them, would an ordinance be the right word?
Sure.
You know, some way that you have to make it what has to
Yeah,
happen.
it's an ordinance.
Yeah. So the information is all out there. It's vast, it's overwhelming. And I really feel like the next stage is to have, all right, we have the sustainable master plan, which was groundbreaking, but now like it really needs to focus on aligning with the Climate Act and with the recommendations of the climate chief. And it addresses everything, because part of it is having communities that, we have communities that make people sick. And the poorer you are, the more sick you are. And it is so, to read that in, I don't know where I read it, either the Times or the Atlantic or something, but to hear that becoming mainstream now, that's, and they're talking about city planning is having a huge impact on people. That's sustainable. That's sustainability. That's not just me doing wacky things like, ooh, we can do that with electric, which I can do. Mike knows I do it very well. But, you know, we really need to look more globally within the community. And so, again, my frustration is like wanting to really explore this and do stuff. And I see other communities doing it, but good God, I can't continually bring stuff and have it be, you know, and that's fine, but I can't do it all. And I would love to see, or you know, have that be something that really is a focus. I don't know, does that make sense?
Could I respond?
Yeah,
So
work harder.
two things. Yeah, really. Two things. One thing I heard you say, I hear, I mean, I've heard your frustration loud and clear many, many times. I hear you.
Wow.
And no, and I feel like I have tried to make an effort to be really supportive and not to be one of these people that's saying, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't we doing that? I feel like I've tried to do that. And if I have failed,
No, you.
I apologize. But I hear something from you today that I haven't heard before, which is that you really need this committee to help, be helpful, to research, to, you know, to learn things, to do outreach, to not just come, to do the work in between times, which we don't, we've done a little recently. But I think I hear you saying you really need this committee to be a support structure for you and not just a place that you have to go for 90 minutes and sometimes feel like you're being not respected because you know, you feel like people think things are not getting done.
Thank you for what you just said. I would like to just if I may finesse that a little bit. And I do really appreciate the efforts that you've made. You've made some really outstanding efforts. You've taken the best and most beautiful minutes I've ever seen. And,
Wow.
yes,
That's what she's.
that's a high bar.
Yeah.
I'm kind of OCD. But, and I like fonts, but, and I do appreciate that, but I think I just want to be clear. It's not that I need this committee to be that, but that is what I would really, that would be really great for me. And for this committee to actually like, it doesn't have to be what I just said. I would like that, and that can happen separately, and it probably should, and be comprised of people all within the field or something, but it just in terms of like this functioning, I don't think, again, your efforts are very noble, and I appreciate all you've done, and I was not here for most of it, but it's always great to talk about what things could happen.
I'll just add that I was glad when the Conway School came along and there was a project and a thing that we could do, because I have also, along with Jonah, we came in around the same time, struggled with what are we doing?
Yeah.
And so I felt like, the Conway project was something that I could actually understand, that this is something the city paid for. We're required to finish this planning effort with the Conway School. We're required to hand this off to the planning board. But during all that time, I've also been aware that we still don't really know what we're doing. You know what I mean? Like down the road, how we're supporting city staff, which I think is a really important role, and what value we're adding for the city. So I'm the chair and I don't know.
Jonah has his
Jonah.
hand up.
Sorry, I can't see your hand because it's under the little record button, but thank you.
I'm sorry, before you speak, I just want to say I didn't mean to speak for you. So if you're,
Why did you
Anyway.
speak for? No, I wasn't gonna say. I
But
was
you
not
did.
gonna say- No, I was actually, so what, just reiterate Mary's thoughts, and I was actually a little surprised at some of your comments, Carol, because I remember when I joined this, you talked about how this committee was a highlight of your work. Like you.
I don't know if I,
I remember you saying that, how much you enjoyed coming here at the beginning. That's what I remember, at least. And the frustrations that I've heard you voice have been at the working within the city and just like butting your head against various walls when you're trying to implement this, and working very hard to implement the various parts of the plan, but having resistance from others in the city government. So I was definitely sorry to hear that you felt that we were not being supportive, and just want to echo Mary's sentiments too. I have never felt that way about your work and have been very grateful for it. My particular thoughts on the lack of accomplishments have been more around us, like what are we doing to help implement this? There are many parts of the plan that need to be implemented that progress is not being made on, as well as the ones where we are making progress. So like what can we be doing? And so I definitely, it's discouraging to hear, we definitely don't want department heads coming to this meeting and feeling worse about their work. So there's definitely some failing happening in what we're doing. So I too just want to apologize for any part of that I've had, and hope that we can turn that around. I really think that, and I've asked this multiple times, and we've proposed a couple ideas in the past that I know that Carol, you've said like that's not going to be effective. And so I do look to Amy and Carol and to Eric and Marlo when they're here, just to give some guidance on how we can be effective, because I don't know the answer, that's for sure. Like I'd love to know how we can make a difference in some way. That's all I want to know with this committee, like how we can do that.
Yeah.
So one of the phrases that Carol mentioned that kind of struck me is about the ordinance. So I'm the city council representative here, and we do have the ability to vote on ordinances. And I know that I would be thrilled to, and I know at least just on top of my head, 3 other counselors who pretty much anything this committee wanted to do as far as sustainability would be jazzed to take that forward and try to implement it. And so my thought on this, when I was asked, do you want to be on this committee? First of all, I said, what's that? But then I saw the word implementation. So I kind of assumed it was going to be like a checklist of things for the city council to do amongst other departments and the like. And if we could do that, like literally, like go through the master plan updates and say, okay, that could be an ordinance. Okay, that could be a resolution. Oh, that one could do, and give me and the other counselors some work to do, because again, it's all backed by the citizenry. Like we've got these meetings, we have public input, and it's not like this is coming out of nowhere. And again, you have lots of city councilors, like Laura, for example, really wanted to talk about the climate destination because she wants to do something. And she's got a resolution coming up either this month or next month, declaring a climate emergency. So like, I know Chief Wood, for example, I know anything we can think of to do, the councilors would be thrilled to do. Will it pass? Hopefully. But that's a different conversation, like we could at least put stuff forward. So, like on our list, the implementing party is very rarely city council, probably because we're political and unreliable, but we still have power, to do stuff. So give us stuff to do, like this committee could present to EDC or A&O and say, hey, here's this ordinance that we wrote. We think this is a great idea because it matches the master plan. One of you please sponsor it,
So I'm
I know
we're almost out of time, and I just want to check in with Nancy. Are we voting on your energy workshop thing, or is that you're all
Up to
done?
you. Yep.
I put it on the agenda because you were surprised to not see it on the agenda last time. So,
Well, my understanding was that the group wasn't comfortable with voting on last time and that you wanted to do that this time.
sure.
If you'd like to do that, that would be lovely. But if you need more information and don't have enough information, then, that's life. I'm letting it go.
Is the vote to support it or
Yes.
something?
To be like a
Co-sponsor.
co-sponsor so that the SGIC logo would be on the promotional materials or
So,
not, Mhm.
I think it's,
okay, so I'll put forward a motion. I think I can do that as chair. That we serve as co-sponsor for the Greenfield's upcoming energy workshop that's happening in November.
I would second.
Any discussion?
Great idea.
All in favor? Okay, great.
Conflict of
Excellent.
interest, but yes, thank you.
You're not making it.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry we had to cut that off, and we can revisit this conversation next time. I do want to check in. Yes, Jonah.
Or maybe you were going here. I hate to bring this up based on Carol's comments about what we talk about.
oh
but
my
our-
God, when are we
our-
meeting next month?
Our next meeting is Thanksgiving.
Yes, I know. That's where I
yeah,
was going next.
Yeah.
No.
So let's see, I had a date to propose and then so that's the 28th. So I was wondering about November 21st. Thursday, November 21st at 4 p.m. if I can arrange the details.
21st.
21st, yeah.
I'm good.
Works for me.
Anybody can't come? Carol cannot. I'm gonna send out a doodle, a brief. I hate.
I mean, it's
long
fine.
calls.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send out a doodle poll. And we'll figure it out that way. On the agenda next time, we'll continue the discussion around what are we doing? I will bring a draft of some ideas about a story map. We will.
Like a visual?
Yes,
Wow.
yep. We will, Carol, do you want the?
No, she doesn't.
Okay.
She's not applying for it.
Okay,
Do I want, oh, that.
yep, you don't want that on there right now.
I mean, I could explain why, but it doesn't seem to matter. So I didn't know what was on there and, nope.
Next meeting, we'll also talk about a process from now on to make sure if you want something on the agenda, the time frame with which it has to get to the chair and how that works. Because I don't put things on the agenda unless somebody emails me and says, and then sometimes I have to say I can't because there's not room, but we should have a process of how that works.
Good idea.
Well, I know you said 2 weeks in advance.
Well, I just made that up.
Okay.
I think legally it's 48 hours, right?
Well, that's when it has to be posted.
Yes. So, any announcements real quick?
It's been a lovely week weather-wise.
Yeah.
Okay. Do I have a move?
I'll move to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you
everybody.
guys.